All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Product Spotlight, and today we have another exciting show for you. We are on our move, and we are moving all around the country starting this week, which is fun, so stay tuned for our road show coming up. But today's going to be a special day. We're going to talk about some advancements in offsite modular construction using generative design, and it's not just for modular construction. It is also for mass timber, CLT, panelized, you name it. So today's going to be a lot of fun to have this conversation because we've been waiting a long time for this to happen. But before we get into this, I want to make sure that we thank our sponsors today. So thank you to Forward Solutions Group, Ben Hershey, Joe Butler. They're a team with more than 175 years of experience developing and specifying manufacturing for panelized, volumetric, modular industries with best practices in development and implementation. They offer consulting with investors, developers, manufacturers, and builders in using offsite manufacturing methods. Forward Solutions is driving companies to succeed where others have failed. To contact them, please reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. And again, thank you so much. They're the perfect sponsor for this show, Product Spotlight, and they're all about offsite. And these are some of the smartest guys in the industry. So thanks so much for all of your sponsorship. So with that said, we got a lot going on. So here at Dave Cooper Live, we like to bring in people and processes that are building it better. Our guests and topics include experts in building systems, the building science, the building codes, and the building tech that's used to build it better. And today is no different. So with that said, why don't we bring in Adrian from Creo Modular right now?
Hey, Dave.
Adrian, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for the invite today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is exciting because we're always talking about who's doing the next best thing, who's driving our industry forward, who's making a difference or trying to make a difference to better what we're doing. And that's something that Creo Modular is doing. And I'm really happy to have you guys on today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So Adrian, in typical form, we're going to do two things here. One, I'm going to ask you to do an intro, and two, then we're going to do a short video of what Creo Modular is and what the software that you're using is doing. And then we're going to jump into the real nuts and bolts of everything that's happening here. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So with that, Adrian, I want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. And we want to hear everything. Do not leave out anything from the hospital. And you got about 3 to 5 minutes to do it. So go for it.
All right. Well, I'm a Vancouver, BC, Canada, born and raised guy. Grew up on the North Shore and went to business school, BCIT. And my first role at a business school was in the construction industry. Actually, I started in the architectural millwork, and I was a sales representative for a company called Richelieu Hardware, and this was a great first experience for me getting into the construction business because I had the pleasure of working with some leading architectural millworkers and factories who at that time were going through their first stages of automation and adding things like robotics and CNC machines. So this was a really interesting experience. I moved on throughout my first 10 years of my career into the manufacturing end of things and actually working for some of the global leaders in hardware for architectural millwork. So companies like Bloom Hardware in Austria, and this continued my experience from in more details from a technical manufacturing end of things and how we could help our clients improve efficiencies and after about 10 or 15 years in that space, I made the jump into larger scale construction, and that was in modular. And for probably around the last 6 years or so, I've been involved in working for modular factories as well as for offsite and prefab construction systems. So I've had a nice background in different methods of offsite construction. Everything from factory millwork to volumetric modular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, I mean, that's perfect, right? I mean, this is what we want. But I mean, the fact that you came from millwork, cabinetry, things of that nature, they've been using, design software that is much more advanced than we've been using in the building, just general building industry for a long, long time. And what you guys have done is kind of taken some of those concepts with generative design. And, how do we do that with the software for the modular industry, panelized mass timber industry, moving forward? So why don't we hop into this? Let's show a short video here. It's about 3.5 minutes. It explains what you're doing, and then we will come back and we're going to dive into this deep. And I know we already have quite a few people in the audience that I'm sure are going to ask some questions. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, let's do it.
Creo Modular is a groundbreaking new feasibility tool for 3D volumetric modular construction. With design for manufacture and assembly in mind, we envisage stakeholders working collaboratively in real time on this platform, finding the optimal design cost trade-off for their scheme at the earliest stage. This video will give you a quick overview of how it works. First, we need to digitalize your 3D volumetric components. You teach us how these components or modules can connect together to form modular units. For example, an apartment. We will then generate a multitude of different options for how these units can fit together into a single building block and work with you to select the most desirable layouts. Your rates information is also added at this point. Once this service is completed on the back end, we can begin to use the application. First, you should find your site that you have in mind for your development. Draw the footprint of your site using one of our two design methods. First is called default modeling, and within this, you set the perimeters of your site, and our intelligent engine provides the best design options for you. Second is pro modeling, and in here, you set out your site perimeter and then drag and drop from a sizable library of preset layouts that you selected during the database creation phase. With both modeling options, you are able to edit the 3D massing of each building block.
I don't know if it froze up on us or not there.
The model that is produced is exportable directly to Revit, as is the structural and MEP models, but only if these disciplines have been included in your module design. You are able to edit unit mixes throughout the whole building or on specific floors. View your key metrics that are pulled directly from your model, such as the unit mix summary, the area schedule summary, and the cost breakdown summary. Please note that these are based on your own rates, but are also editable within the application. The reports for each design iteration can be exported directly to Excel for you to compare at your convenience away from our application. Similarly, you can directly compare your creations using our versions tab. Thank you for watching, and see you in the application.
All right. So I don't know if I froze up for a second here on this end, but that's the value and love of live streaming. So Adrian, let's jump into this. I already see some questions starting to work their way into the comment section here. Walk us through what your role is with this and kind of where you're headed. And, tell us a little bit about why you got involved in this as well, because I think that's a pretty important thing to understand, because this is a big undertaking for you and you guys are just breaking into new markets. So let's get into it, and then let's get into the questions. Go for it.
Yeah, I know that's a great place to start, Dave. I think the reason I joined Creo is because I lived the problem and worked for a large modular manufacturer, leader in Canada, and then also worked for a non-modular manufacturer doing prefab steel, high-end, zero-ready custom homes, and both faced similar challenges. And the biggest challenge was not, you know, the number of opportunities of projects that we had. We were getting hit with all kinds of fantastic opportunities to build projects and to quote projects, but the challenge is we were getting all of these projects that were already too far along down the design path, and so, you know, we had to make the tough decision to basically turn people away in many cases because they were too far down that design path and in more of a traditional method of construction. And so, you know, this is challenging because quite often we accepted projects reluctantly because we wanted the business, of course, and had to spend a lot of time and effort and cost internally to not only win those projects but to convert them to our system. And you know, this is a challenge. The more I talk to my colleagues in other modular companies around Canada and the US, it's a challenge that it seems like most modular companies face. And it's not just modular. Again, it's offsite in general that faces this challenge. And what I came to realize, especially near the end of my time at my previous role in manufacturing at Volumetric with one of these large manufacturers, was that the problem was because we hadn't done a great job in the industry at prefab at making it easy for the A&D and the architects and developers and engineers to actually specify our systems. So that was something that we had kind of been slow to do, and we try to do it all internally, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. So, you know, one of the things is there's not traditional training for most architects or engineers out there in offsite construction. It's either you learn from somebody or you get your butt handed to you and learn the hard way. It's, you know, it's one or the other. There are some programs now out there that are starting that traditionally train people. And so that's part of it. But the other side of this is, you know, there's so much time wasted with designing and not really being able to build what was designed because it wasn't designed with offsite in mind. It wasn't designed with panelization modular in mind. And then that's a whole rework of plans and time delays and costs for manufacturing and so forth. So let's hop into, so how does one get started with this? Like, walk us from ground zero, say, we're gonna solve this problem for you, the manufacturer.
Yeah, so great question. So I think what's unique about our generative solution is that we base our generative solution around a kit of parts that are real. So if you're a modular manufacturer, most of you are using BIM already, and you have a library of modules that you use to, you know, assemble together to create different building types. So this is our source feed of data that we use. So the first step when we're working with a new manufacturer is to get your source data into our library, and that looks like a kit of parts if you're doing a non-volumetric modular system. So if it's panelized, you're going to have different wall, floor assemblies, and that kind of thing. But if you're modular, you're going to have different volumetric modules that can be combined into specific groupings. So this is how we start. So this is important because we want the early stage massings and conceptual designs to be based on exactly what is going to be going out into the factory. And this is the problem I think that we're addressing here. So is that all too often that doesn't happen.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna let's do a couple comments here real quick just to say hi to people. Let's warm up the show, get it going, because Adrian, it is snowing where I am at. We got a big storm rolling through the Northeast. Anywhere from, I always love when they say, well, anywhere from 3 inches to 16 inches. You know, I'm going to come back as a weatherman in my next life. All right. Hey, Jordy Puchinger, what is happening, Jordy? Morning, gents. Joe Butler, I am lurking and listening. Oh, man. Hey, Joe. Gotta love Joe. Thank you, Joe, for sponsoring our show today. You and Forward Solutions Group. Awesome, awesome people. If you don't know Joe Butler, you should know Joe. Not only do they know what they're doing, they're just really good people. And that's important to me and anybody else out there. Good morning, Joel Hutchins. Are you in Australia or are you here in the States, my friend? I hope all is well. We got Will Leverett joining us as well. Good to see you, Will. I'm glad that you're joining us. Joel has a question. Very cool and interesting. What level of detail are you achieving with each module?
Great question, Joel. I mean, I think that I may have partially addressed this, but since we're basing the library on a real BIM model with real structural components, it's extremely detailed. Our tool actually generates a accurate model that's exported into Revit. So you can actually, get a pretty big head start on a project using our generative tool to come up with the concept, export it into Revit, and continue. If we've included MEP into the module upload in the module library, which we can do, then you'll even have MEP included in your Revit model as well at that stage. But yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I'm sure Joe will have follow-up. He's not short for questions or words. All right, here we go. We got Samir Masood. I think I said that right. Looks powerful and intuitive. John Jaworski says, very cool. And now we have another question. Henry Mickelberg. Can you only export to Revit if your volumetric modular client has digitized their module as an object? And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, right now we're set up to export to Revit, but since we have our own proprietary software tool, we don't rely on Revit. So if we have a bespoke requirement to export into another BIM solution, we have the capability to be able to work with a client in that regard. But our standard kind of offering is designed to import directly into Revit.
Perfect. Thanks, Henry, for the question. All right, we got one more question, then we're going to jump deeper into what you guys are doing here. So Rajat Wadwa, I think I said that right, I hope. If I haven't, please don't tear me up in the comments. In the conversation you said about net zero energy projects, how do you achieve that during pre-design energy modeling stage?
Yeah, that I think when I was talking about net zero, I was speaking to my experience prior to joining Creo. But essentially, if you're trying to use generative design like Creo to model, you're going to start by ensuring that your kit of parts has been modeled for a net zero or a passive house level construction. So that'll set you off on the right foot. And there's energy consultants and engineering firms who are able to help you with that. But at the end of the day, you're still going to need to design something, get it to a conceptual stage, send that to your energy modeler or your engineer. Still at this stage, we don't have detailed energy modeling as part of our solution at this time.
All right, thanks for that question. All right, let's jump into this. So one of the things that we talked about is you're opening up modular construction to the mass market. Now, what I find very interesting about this is you've made a tool that for the most part, any architect, any engineer can pick up and start designing with and play within the parameters of whichever manufacturer they deal with. Is that an accurate comment?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a number of avenues that the market can use our tool with. The way that we see first stage for manufacturer, for example, manufacturers are our primary clients, and what they're doing is empowering their external architects and engineering clientele with our tool so that they can kind of break the cycle of inefficient designs coming to their sales group and their design group. So that's one way. The other way is with manufacturers' permission, we can open up their libraries to our architect and engineering clients who want to get involved in modular, don't have the contacts, don't have the experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's powerful, right? Because there isn't a lot of training out there. We need more architects. We need more designers in our space. However, when you don't understand how to design to the offsite methods based on whatever manufacturing you're using, or in particular, the specific manufacturer you're using, because they all do their widgets a little bit differently sometimes. I think this is the way to go. It opens up the door to allow more people with more creative minds to get involved in our process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a the vast majority of the projects being built, unfortunately, don't even get sent to modular companies. They're built in traditional means, and it's because a lot of architects and engineers stick to what they know and what they're comfortable with. And my experience in the millwork and cabinetry industry taught me the importance of making it easy for architects and engineers to be able to specify your product. So we hear a lot of stuff about design for manufacturing, and this is around productization. So part of successful productization is really treating your product as something that can be specified, similar to a way that architects and engineers specify windows and doors and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of that kit apart you were talking about, having this all loaded into the system, so it's ready to use and at the fingertips of whoever the designer is at that time to move it forward. All right. So one of the other things with this is, you're streamlining it, is basically what we're saying, right? Streamlining offsite construction through intelligent automation. So not only are they taking all this information that they're designing using your software and your system, it's now generating the designs. Walk us through. The architect plugs and plays whatever they're thinking, or the engineer or the manufacturer. How does it go?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned a little bit earlier, the first step in getting a functional library into our tool is uploading our manufacturer's BIM models. And those BIM models, if you're a volumetric modular, are going to be individual modules. So the individual module that's going to roll down the production line. And then the second important factor is how that module interacts with complementary modules. So we call these groupings. And once we have our individual modules and our groupings, now we've kind of got the baseline to be able to figure out ways that we can arrange these groupings in order to meet that site-specific dimensions, as well as the, if it's a residential project, what's the unit mix we're going for. And this feeds into our intelligent algorithm or machine, a virtual machine. And essentially, we're able to put in limitations as far as building height goes, setbacks, unit mix. And once we put in these limitations, we plot out our building footprint. We hit go, and essentially our algorithm and our computers and our servers will generate options. And in many cases, we'll get anywhere between 50 to 30 options, and then we can go through and compare those and select the ones that we want to dive into deeper.
Right. All right. So now we generated these different options much faster than anybody can draw out 50 or 60 options, and would cost an absolute fortune to do.
Yeah.
What is the next step after that? This is going to be where we import it into a Revit or some other system, or is there steps in between this now?
I would say once we generate our options, before we want to export anything, we want to perhaps choose a few options that we think are best, and present those to our client. Instead of presenting them one option, which is what kind of is an industry norm, we spend a lot of time and money coming up with a one option and quoting it. Our tool won't only design the options that it's giving you, it will actually quote them. And it's quoting them based on your data. So when we upload your library, we're also uploading your estimating team's costing for each one of those modules, and then can even upload the non-modular aspects. But essentially, we're going to present these options to our client, really increasing or improving that client experience, getting them involved in the design process. And then once they, help us narrow down what design cost trade-off of these few design options that we've presented to them, which one fits their needs the best. Then we're going to, of course, ask that client for a contract to sign up with us to develop this project in greater detail. And at that stage, we're going to export it into Revit or whatever BIM software we're using to design and detail projects internally.
Right. All right. So, I mean, this is pretty, amazing stuff, right? So, especially in the modular and offsite world. So now we have something that you can plug and play your information into. It generates, designs, 5, 10, 15, 20, 1,000, whatever it's going to be. Now you have multiple options to go back to the customer with, but at the same time, it's also generating proposals, costs.
Yeah, it's designing proposals and costs, and this is key. We know that one of the key aspects to getting a client to a committed stage is being able to articulate the cost of the project, especially if they've never done modular before. They're going to be very tentative in this. So we really want to make them feel comfortable with the budget, and we don't want to burden our estimating and design teams with clients we may be able to put forward into production. So that's essentially the solution. So my experience in the estimating stage, working for volumetric modular manufacturer, is that projects at the early stage don't always get the full attention of an estimating team, and this is challenging, because this is actually when you want the most amount of attention, because attention results in better quotes. But it's hard to justify this cost when you don't have a paying client perhaps at that stage. So this is where I think we can really help, because we can empower your estimating group to feel comfortable providing a much sharper number, because our generative tool is calculating the takeoffs and calculating the exact costs of that material and that volumetric modular solution for the estimating team. So now the estimating team can just review and confirm, as opposed to having to do all that heavy lifting.
Got it. So Joel had a question here. In fact, there's a couple comments. I knew he'd be heavy into this one today. How do you allow customization when you rely on a standard library of modules? If you took a DFMA approach, you should be able to have constraints highlighted within one parametric module that would give you infinite possibilities. So, I guess really the question there is, how customizable is your solution to each module?
Yeah, I mean, we can have an unlimited number of modules in our library for each manufacturer. So, there really is no limit. But I think one thing that's important to recognize for manufacturers and being able to scale their business, be able to be profitable and efficient, is, it's not efficient and profitable to build a different dimension module every time you take on a new project. Right. So, we really want to help manufacturers, refine the module dimensions that's going down the production line. The other factor is you don't want to be producing a bunch of tiny modules, because now you're creating a bunch of redundancy from a structural standpoint. So, most manufacturers want to build the largest dimension module they can to reduce that structural redundancy, as well as reduce that costly transportation and logistics costs. So to answer the question, we achieve customization by empowering our manufacturer to use generative AI tool to figure out, millions of different configurations for as narrow of a kit of parts as we can, because we want that manufacturer to focus on building, the fewest number of modules they have to in order to create the most solutions. There's a lot of examples of manufacturers who have struggled and unfortunately had to close their facilities because they were having to treat every project as a one-off, and it had major impacts in their procurement and their ability to maintain inventories and their ability to train and retain employees.
Sure. And then as a follow-up to that, and this is something I asked you as well, how does it differ? Joel said, how does this differ from Archistar, Devel, Spacemaker, some of the other, companies that are out there that are doing generative design?
Yeah, that's a perfect question, Joel. And those are all fantastic tools. And I think they can be very complementary to what we're doing. I think most of those tools, the best way I would describe them as they're more master planning tools. So that's a tool that you would use before maybe you get into a Creo modular tool or a Creo design tool. This is a tool that you're going to use perhaps to choose your site. especially for larger projects where the land acquisition cost is going to be substantial and you're maybe comparing multiple pieces of property. What separates Creo, I think, is that we're really focused on the actual building and you know, the product that's going onto that site. So to my knowledge, none of those tools incorporate an actual module or a BIM product that's been designed for manufacturing into their solution. So although they're very, very good at helping you choose, you know, perhaps the best ROI on a piece of land as far as the total square footage or the lot area coverage that, you know, you can put on that site, they're really not going to get you much of a head start into the actual design of the building and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right, right. All right, moving on, some other comments here. So, and Henry, and this is something that I want to talk about as well. Let's get into, how do you manage volumetric interface? Did I already do this one? Hold on. Oh, no, I did not. MEP connections, structural connections, balconies, facades. This gets down to the level of construction. Let's talk about the detail that your program is putting into this, because as you mentioned earlier, this is really meant to be fairly accurate all the way down to the MEPs and the systems that are in place that can be imported into Revit, which is going to speed up the entire design time. Accurate?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, not everyone is going to start using Creo with an MEP solution. It's what I would say is for more of a mature product. And a mature product would be, an example of that would be perhaps a manufacturer that's focused and has an expertise of building a lot of the same building type over and over again. So this could be an example that could be an affordable housing builder where they're building a lot of the same building type. And the reason I say they're specializing is because they've designed their modules or their kit of parts to have mechanical chases or mechanical highways at various points in the module that are designed to link together into different groupings. So if you're at that level or you want to get to that level, we can definitely help. And there are, you know, very good architects and consultants out there who specialize in helping factories design product libraries
Right.
to do this. And we can work with them to incorporate that kit of parts into our library for you.
So whether it's an MEP or whether it's the facade, balconies, or all the other things he was asking about, this can all be incorporated into the system.
That's right. Yeah, and it's really just your you know, kit of parts in your library that is going to have that. Now, if it's a custom application, it may be required. Like if you have a custom client application that's not in your existing library, well, it's not hard to just throw in and add an extra module that will accomplish that client's specific need. Yeah.
Right, right. Love it, love it, love it. All right, perfect, perfect. So let's keep diving into this. We'll get back to some more comments and questions as we move through. So we talked about rapid design. We're talking about streamlining production. Walk us through how this is streamlining production.
Streamlining production is the big one. I mean, you know, in order to streamline production, we have to do a couple of things. So the first is, you know, we want to try and cut that negative feedback loop. And that negative feedback loop is all the inefficient, non-modularized designs that are coming through to our sales team in a modular factory, are coming through to our design group. So the first way we're going to do that is every time we get one from an architect, from a developer, we're going to empower them with access to our library and to our tool. We're going to refer them to, you know, access to Creo. And Creo has a free user level of access. So, you know, we're able to empower, you know, our manufacturing clients with access to the tool at no charge if they want to, you know, try and use it. So that's going to cut that first source. And it will take a little bit of time before all of those non-optimized projects go away. But at least now we've got a path forward that's going to empower the market. The second is not ignoring these inefficient projects and managing them internally in a way that we can actually stop turning away business because it's not optimized. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to empower our manufacturers' internal sales, design, and estimating teams with the Creo tool to suggest alternative solutions. So instead of turning away a highly inefficient design, saying we can't do this, you're too far gone, we're going to say, you know what, your design might not be efficient for modular, but why don't we take a look at 2 or 3 options that we've generated that are efficient, and here's a high level costing even to go with it, and some renders, and let's start helping these people that are coming to us with their projects see how we can work with them in an efficient way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, I mean, streamlining is really the biggest thing right now. I mean, the front end work that manufacturers, modulars to win bid jobs, to get all this information pulled together is probably the largest struggle. You spend 99% of your time bidding work to just get a small fraction of that work. So if you can streamline the upfront design, costing, and how it goes to production, I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's honestly, I think, one of the largest kind of costs that manufacturers and modular have is trying to manage this cost, what we call the cost of acquisition. So, we don't, and there's a lot of buzz around modular and prefab right now. We know that it's in the news. There's a lot of, projects, hotels that are setting height records in the East Coast, and, affordable housing on the West Coast that's gaining steam, and we have a lot of momentum, a lot of free publicity that we're getting in the industry. So the last thing we want to do is say no to someone that wants to come and work with us, but they don't know how. So I think the timing is great for us to try and help cut this, like I said, this negative feedback loop of inefficient design processes, and really empower our clients and our stakeholders.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, offsite's the way to go. I mean, obviously, you know how I feel about this, and I'm not going to get on my soapbox because I got on it twice yesterday. But you're absolutely right. However, in our space, we have some challenges, and technology is a challenge. How do we increase productivity, right? How do we increase capacity? This is another thing we talked about. All right. There's one thing about, increasing your sales upfront. Okay, great. Everybody's really busy the way it is right now for the most part, and people are maxed out on capacity. What happens with production? How do you get over that hurdle next, right? Because now you have to deliver all this wonderful stuff that you sold up front faster.
Yeah, well, this is really the other, key here is, in eliminating that negative feedback loop of inefficient designs, what happens is you eliminate the variation and the number of different modules that are going down your production line, because now you have streamlined your production line around your kit of parts that you're actually conceiving projects around. So, in doing this, you're really, you could be a manufacturer that's producing hundreds of different boxes every year to achieve specific project requirements. But once you shift into this productization and this design for manufacturing, and ensure that your internal design team and your external clientele are designing their projects and conceiving them around your module library, now you've essentially optimized your entire factory, and you've done this without having to buy a bunch of equipment. But equipment is also part of the solution. My argument is that you shouldn't be buying automated equipment if you don't have a standardized product going through your factory. So that's where I think we can really make an impact.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I guess there's different levels of that, right? Automation, depending on whether you're talking about CNC machines or you're talking about true robotics going down a production line, right? So there's a lot of variables there. What about giving us a kind of an overview look at what the user interface is like on that? Is that something that you could share with the audience? Yeah,
I'd be happy to share. Yeah, why don't I share my screen here?
Yeah, I think let's take a look at what the user interface is. We have a lot of people tuning in. If you have any questions for Adrian, Creo, I know some of your tech teams in the background listening in as well. Put them in the comments. If we don't have an answer for you, or if we don't get to your question or comment, just we will get to you after the show 100% for sure. So let me share this.
All right. Yeah, let me know when you can see the screen there, Dave. And
yeah, it's up.
Yeah, so I guess like one of the key aspects of our tool, and someone asked earlier, I can't remember who it was, what the difference was with our tool. Like, a lot of generative programs out there are extremely powerful, and they're designed for a very technical user. I think we've designed ours with a user interface that's really, you know, intended to be easy to use. So you don't need to be an architect or an engineer who's familiar with Revit to use our tool. You can be a sales guy like myself, or a developer, and you can pick this tool up and start, you know, using it right away. And I'll show you an example of how we start a project. It's quite simple. So this is the home screen. It gives an example of our previous completed projects. If I want to go down and look at my libraries that I've got a couple of different libraries here that I can choose to generate my design from. So if you're a manufacturer and you're doing residential or you know, low-rise, mid-rise residential or hotels, you can select the libraries that you're going to start your design from. And I'll show you a quick example of what a library consists of, because this question came up. So we've got our individual modules here, and these are you know, part of the source code, I guess, for our algorithm. And then we've got our blocks, and our blocks are groupings of these modules. And so this is how we're going to you know, generate our building types. This is what we're pulling from. So so let's go back home and we'll start a new project here.
And this is, just so everybody knows, this is set up per whatever manufacturer you are. So if you're a manufacturer, you're going to have your own set of libraries that you already use. You're going to have your own set of blocks, and that's how the program's set up. Is that accurate? That's
correct. Yeah. We'll put in your own modules. And the reason this is important is because we want to, every manufacturer is going to have different limitations and different strengths. So we don't want to just use a standardized, you know, kit of parts and library. We really want to have a library that's designed around our manufacturer's focus and our manufacturer's strengths. So that's it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the location of this project that we're trying to conceive. So I'm here in Vancouver, so it automatically pulls me up into Vancouver. So here's Vancouver. I'm going to zoom in on a potential lot, perhaps. And we've got two modes. We've got a pro mode and a generative mode. And this is great because the pro mode is a more drag and drop method to be able to design a smaller or more basic solution. So if we're designing a small project and we don't necessarily need a generative tool, we've got blocks that we want to drag and drop and put together to design our building, we can do that. But I'm not going to go through that today. I'm going to go through and just quickly show you the generative mode, because this is the part that I think is really cool. And it's, you know, it's what we're really known for at Creo. So I'm going to start by plotting out a potential site. So this would be perhaps a piece of land that our client owns and they want to you know, develop a modular project on. So I'll connect all those dots. That's our site. And then based on the settings that we've got here, or the limitations. So here are a bunch of limitations that we can adjust, including number of stories. We get a solution. This solution, we can quickly have a look at it in 3D if we want, see how the massing looks. We can isolate different blocks and modify them as well if we want to. Over here, we can even go, we get a bunch of different options over here. We can have a look at all the options our algorithm generated for this site. So we'll give it a second and it'll pop up a whole bunch of different algorithms. Now, these generative options are coming from our library and our kit of parts. So here we're getting the ability to quickly compare based on some kind of key data sets, you know, which one might be the best for us. And if we're sitting with our client at this stage, now we can get our client involved in helping us come up with a solution. And maybe if this is a net zero or a passive house project and we want to take a look at the direct sunlight, that might be important. Or maybe we want to look at the FAR level for this site, or the site ratios. So this is going to help us choose. So I'm going to, for fun, I'm just going to choose this one. Let's go here. We'll replace. Now we'll close. And so I've choose this site. So I'll move ahead and we'll get to the end of this process because it's a pretty quick process. So we'll give it a second. It's going to go back to our home screen now. And now that it's taken us back to our home screen, what's going on is here's the project that we just created. And in the background, right now, our algorithms are computing they're computing all the takeoffs, all the details for this building. So we're going to get an architectural drawing. We're going to get floor plate plans. We're going to get a takeoff of all the components in the building structurally. And I'll show you an example of what it looks like when it's done. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to complete. So I'm going to go over to a project that's already done. It's a much larger project, but I'll give you an example of the kind of analytics and the reports that we get after about 3 or 4 minutes of waiting. So here's the kind of the main page of our completed project. It kind of gives us a little bit of data here. So we get a structural model. So we can collect the structural model and really, hone in on kind of the different elements of the project. So if I want, I can find an actual module. This is a steel-based system. And we'll have primary and secondary load members. We can manipulate the model. We've also got our cores, our concrete cores, and slabs are here as well. So that's pretty neat. We can go back home here. We get an architectural model as well. So if we want to show a client, exactly what the project is going to look like, maybe you want to zoom in and isolate a module and check out the layout and partition walls, we can do that.
So that was showing, as Henry Mickelberg was asking, the facade, the balconies on this particular model. So let me get this right. And I know the comment came up with some other generative design folks like Archistar and so forth. But basically, where your platform seems to be super, super strong is you find the lot, you plug in the parameters, the zoning, the codes yourself versus the system generating that for you. But then your program takes and then generates multiple options of what you could potentially develop on this site. And then you choose from those options. And once you choose from those options, it takes 3 or 4 minutes to generate that design to the details that you have specified for your manufacturing facility. So it's just not a conceptual design. It's a super detailed design. And this all happens within just a few minutes. And I think that's where the power of this really comes in, because now you can take like what you just showed us, that big building, within a day and walk a client through what your options are.
That's correct. And that's why I think it's really going to be beneficial to a lot of manufacturers who unfortunately have to turn clients away because they don't have time to develop something like this and price it out for a client that isn't what I would call qualified.
Right.
So now you're able to widen the net and widen and lower your acquisition cost on projects. And I think the other cool thing is you're providing a client experience that is very complementary to the construction experience that client is going to have later in the project. It's extremely innovative, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's fast and accurate and high quality. I'll give you another example of some of the data that we get here because this is powerful, and this is what's going to help that client make that decision to move forward with you, and it's also what's going to really help your estimating team. So here's an example of the data that we get, and of course this is data that's assembled based on that individual module and those individual groupings cost. So you do have to do a little bit of work on the front end when we're putting your library in with your estimating team to cost out those modules, and then also if you're looking at non-modular costs and you want to include that, like demolition, for example, or foundation work. There may be some averaging and some costing that you have to put in if you choose to present this at this stage. You don't have to present that, but I think a lot of factories may want to incorporate this. Mm-hmm. So once that's done, this is going to do a lot of that heavy, what I would call Series A or first level estimating for you, And it's also going to eliminate a lot of mistakes that sometimes happen at this stage, and help you generate a much sharper estimate. So here's an estimate report. We have area schedules, element summaries. So these are detailed takeoffs, right, based on the BIM model that we've created, which is based on your actual kit of parts. We got metrics here, so unit mix, details, for example, if it's residential, whole bunch of important information. We got an environmental report, so snow load values, wind load values.
So it's actually taking into account some of the engineering as well.
Absolutely.
The civil engineering side, or the structural engineering side of this. Now, all right, I'm looking at all of this, data in, data out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a manufacturer. I'm so darn busy. I can't stop what I'm doing because I need to focus on the customers I can't even get to yet. This takes a lot of work to get, all this data in. How do I get my spreadsheets of what my costs are of materials and XYZ? Walk us through how your team would manage that with me.
Yeah. So you've got your data in, like you said, but you're not going to, Creo's not going to replace your ERP, right? So what do you do when you're ready to move forward and you've developed something in Creo? Well, all of our data and our analytics that I've shown you here in these reports, they can be exported into CSV or to Excel. So CSV is kind of like the universal language that a lot of these ERP systems and estimating tools read. So we can fit right into your existing process, and that's easy, right? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So there's that. As far as the structural model, the architectural model that's generated here, that can be exported and downloaded into Revit. And so you can open that into Revit or into your BIM software. If it's not Revit, we'll provide you a bespoke solution so that you can open it if you're not using Revit into other tools, and then continue developing that project into greater detail on your existing platform that you use internally. So we're really trying to augment these existing tools that you have in your manufacturing facility or in your construction facility. We're not replacing them. We're really saying, here's a tool that you can use in advance to getting into some of these heavier tools, and it's going to speed the process up and really reduce your overhead.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Let's take a couple comments here. Pascal Chazal, great job. Thank you for joining us today, Pascal. All right, here we go. Henry, I assume that the better vertically integrated you are within the turnkey solution, the more detail is available.
I think maybe Henry's referring to manufacturers that have their own internal design, potentially, and engineering, and yeah, to a certain extent. But I think not necessarily. I think, like, if you're a startup manufacturer or a manufacturer that leverages a lot of external consultants, that you'll benefit equally here, and can actually empower leaner manufacturers who don't have all these people on staff, because now you're going to be able to put a bunch of work in, of course, in getting that optimized library. But once that's done, you're going to be able to reuse that effort over and over again. And then you're still going to use your external consultants, but you're maybe going to use them once you have confirmed clients, instead of before that client is confirmed and signed onto contract. Or you're going to use them to develop new products and new modules for new building types.
Yeah, for sure. So how useful is this? I mean, we're not seeing so much residential. We're seeing more commercial applications here, multifamily, things of that nature. What about a residential manufacturer, a custom builder, that, like we had Commodore Corporation on yesterday. They have 6 manufacturing plants. They focus on residential. Is this a tool that they can use as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're right. Most of the examples and the clients we've worked with to date have been doing larger scale projects, but there's no reason why you can't benefit on a smaller scale. It's just a different kit of parts and a different scale of project. In fact, I think smaller scale builders struggle with some of these problems more, because in single family, in order to work your clientele into a higher end solution, that clientele doesn't always want the same house as their neighbor. Right. They want a level of differentiation, especially if they're spending $1 million, $2 million on a home. And so I think we have the ability to work with a client and their architect to come up with a kit of parts that will limit the variation of product going down a factory floor, which is key in manufacturing, but a kit of parts that can offer that level of differentiation that they need to be able to upscale their product into a wider client market, higher end or market, for example.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I see this generative design in the custom home market, like modular offsite marketplace. If a customer wants a 2-story colonial, and this could generate 20 different designs for their lot in a matter of seconds or minutes or whatever it is, versus how much time it truly takes for a manufacturer to design these and get a customer further along in the pipeline on standard. I mean, if we look at it this way, on standard kit of stuff, as opposed to the one-off customization all the time, I think that could be such a powerful, huge deal for custom modular manufacturers, because they're doing one-offs every single day. But imagine if you could have a tool that creates 30 one-offs.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can take the kit of parts to a more micro level too in that example. Yeah. So instead of perhaps having a bunch of different large modules, you can have a bunch of different micro modules. So it could be a bathroom pod variation that you offer. It could be a kitchen pod variation that you offer within a module to create different configurations, not just the overall structural component. And I think that you're right. I mean, the custom guys can still call themselves custom, but not at their expense. We want these custom guys to be able to differentiate the client product, because that's important to them. That's how they get business.
Yeah, definitely. And we all know when the market slows down in the custom home world, which it does time to time, being able to meet a client's need faster is key. Very much so, because there's a lot of shopping going on. All right, let's go. We got Joe Butler. Good old Joe Butler, Forward Solutions Group. What's happening, Joe? Adrian, how would you see Creo being a competitive advantage for a manufacturer with an opportunity like RHI in Canada?
RHI.
Maybe you should let everybody know who RHI is first.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think RHI might be a affordable mobile home manufacturer. I think, I'm not 100%, but maybe Joe can confirm that. But let's talk about that, assuming I'm right. So with a mobile home manufacturer, I mean, they're really trying to create standardization to drive down price. And so I think we kind of touched on this with your last question, but I'll dive in a little bit deeper. So again, we can help a low-cost mobile home manufacturer improve their product, but still maintain that high level of optimization, and that could be using our tool to offer differentiated micro modular pods within their platform and their footprint to be able to differentiate. It could be on a larger scale as well, offering different entire structural module solutions and perhaps expanding that. But yeah, there's a few ways we can do it.
Sure. Rapid Housing Initiative is what it stood for.
Oh, right. Of course. Yeah. So Rapid Housing Initiative, I think it's perfect for Rapid Housing Initiative. You've got, one of the big challenges with this is you've got very unique sites that, require unique solutions. And in order